Chapter 46. Money is not everything. After a while, the Land family felt that Mojin wasn't bad, even though he was a little ugly. Mojin couldn't stand the heartwarming scene. Feeling a bit uncomfortable, he left the room. Lan could tell that Mojin didn't look well and remembered that in her past life, he loved the quiet and didn't like noise. He probably wouldn't want to experience such an occasion again in 8 lifetimes. But if he wasn't really here to see her mother, what was he here for? Lan followed him out. "Butler Mo, are you feeling unwell?" Mojin was about to relax when he gave a solemn excuse. "No, I'm going to the toilet." "Butler Mo, you're going to the toilet here?" Lan pointed to the corner of the wall behind her and smiled. Mojin leaned against the wall with a worried expression, as though he was anxious from holding it in. I'll go that way." Mojin gritted his teeth and turned to leave. "The toilet is over here," Lan smiled. Mojin turned back with an embarrassed expression. Lan stood at the door, waiting for Mojin. "Butler Mo, are you done?" Lan words embarrassed Mojin and his face started to turn green. How could the young lady of the Land family be talking so loudly in the washroom? Mojin walked out unhurriedly. "Miss Lan, this is a hospital, and you are already the young mistress of the Mo family. You must pay attention to your image." "Well, it's good that I didn't go in, isn't it? Tell me, why were you looking for me today?" Lan went straight to the point. A trace of surprise flashed in Mojin eyes. How did Lan know his purpose wasn't here to see her mother? "The day when I fainted, did anyone come in contact with him, or did you leave?" He asked seriously. Lan looked at Mojin expression and guessed. "Is he looking for the person who saved him?" He nodded. I did leave midway. Back then, I was going to find a car, so I left you in the classroom. What's wrong?" Mojin was ecstatic, thinking he had found the answer. He was one step closer to 0. "Did you see anyone, a woman or a man?" he asked anxiously. "No, I don't think so." Lan shook her head in confusion. Mojin face fell, and a dark gleam appeared in his eyes. "Oh, right, your illness." Lan only wanted to ask Mojin condition was better. "Never mind. Tell me if you remember anything." Mojin was a little disappointed. Butler Mo, don't be sad. Young Master Mo is so rich. You can tell him. He will definitely save you." Lan spoke deliberately. She knew that Mojin had such an illness, but she didn't know that she was the cure. She thought that only doctors could treat such an illness, and Mojin chose to endure it so that his identity wouldn't be exposed. At this moment, her thoughts drifted. "So what if he's rich? If I can't find her, Mojin muttered softly. "What did you say?" His voice was so soft that Lan couldn't hear him, so she frowned. "Nothing. I should go." Mojin walked into the ward and he spoke, while Mo-san chatted enthusiastically with the Land family. "Young Master, something happened at the company. You have to go back and deal with it." Mo-san was laughing, but when he heard Mojin's words, he immediately stood up and spoke solemnly. "Mrs. Lan, Mr. Lan, I'm going back for now. Goodbye." "Why are you calling me Mrs. Lan and Mr. Lan? You should call us Mom and Dad." Yer thought that Mojin was ugly, but he's good with people, so she accepted it. Lee Euro thought that Mojin was ugly, but he was a good person, so she accepted it slowly. "Mom, what are you saying?" Lan was a little surprised. It seemed like her parents regarded Mo-san as their son-in-law. What should she do? "What's wrong? Jinrong is very humorous and eloquent. He will definitely treat you well in the future." Lan smiled. Alright. You can leave now. If you have something to do, go ahead. We'll talk again next time. Lan and Ran chased them away. Mo-san and Mo Jinrong were pushed out of the ward. Lan Yanran found Mo Jinrong strange, as though he was afraid of the driver beside him. He really didn't know who the master was. After leaving the hospital, Mo Jinrong got into the car. Young Master Mo, do you have any clues? Mo-san asked. No, Lan Yanran said she did leave. This person must still be in Rongcheng. Mo Jinrong said calmly. Young Master Mo, since she is in Rongcheng and was found here, she might be in the school. Who knows? Mo-san's eyes reminded Mo Jinrong of something. Investigate the teachers and the principal of the school. Yes, young Master Mo. By the way, Miss Lan's parents were very welcoming. Mo-san reminisced. You seem to be familiar with them. Did you get a good chat? Mo Jinrong spoke coldly, sounding dissatisfied. Young Master Mo, you can't blame me for this. The Lan family insisted on chatting with me, and I only made a few jokes to make them happy. They seemed to be very satisfied with me. Mo-san smirked. Chapter 47, Becoming Like a Goddess. I didn't let you pretend to be me to tarnish my reputation. Mo Jinrong spoke coldly. Got it, young master. Mo-san was aggrieved. Was it his fault for being so well liked? How was the pharmacy competition these past few days? Mo Jinrong closed his eyes and leaned against the seat. The written test has just ended, and we can't tell who is better yet, but Lan Yaxin is most favored, Mo-san replied respectfully. Lan Yaxin? Pay more attention to her. Our company needs some new faces, Mo Jinrong said softly. Young Master Mo, in the past few years, we've been researching for geniuses in the pharmacy competition. There are already many of them in the company, Mo-san replied. Over the years, young Master Mo had found the best contestants in the competition and privately contacted them with high remuneration to serve the company. The company had already assigned a large group of people to make medicine, so it was unnecessary to hire again. None of them are good enough. Mo Jinrong opened his eyes and looked out the window with a glum expression. But if the second daughter of the Lan family comes to the company, won't Miss Lan know about the Mo family's secret? Mo-san was a little worried. Boss Mo's company was a secret, and everyone had entered with a confidentiality agreement and a life and death contract. Would Lan Yaxin leak the secret? If she dared to say anything, she wouldn't see the sun again. You need to keep an eye on her. Is there news from Rongzi? Mo Jinrong asked casually, adjusting his glasses. No, Master Z's whereabouts are unpredictable. He will come and find you. After Lan Anran saw that Li Yuro had drunk the herbal soup, she returned home alone and took out her computer. She was going to look for news online. How is it? Is there any news? Her slender fingers tapped lightly on the keyboard. Boss, there is something, but I don't know if it's reliable or not, the other party replied swiftly. Tell me about it. I heard that Xiang Taiyan is going to discuss a business deal with a mysterious person. Xiang Taiyan has also concealed his tracks well, so do you think this is a trap? Where did you get your information? It's from the old man from before. He knows us. Although he is well informed, we still have to consider the reliability of his information. The other party sounded worried. It's alright. Whether it's real or fake, I'll have to take a look. We would be able to stop working for a while if we had 10 billion yuan. Lan Anran decided to take a look. Even if this was a trap, it was worth it for 10 billion. Sis! Lan Yanran suddenly pushed the door, and Lan Anran quickly shut her computer, looking panicked. He had a vague understanding. As a university student, it was normal to see things they weren't supposed to. He smiled awkwardly. Sis, I won't disturb you. Continue to read. Lan Yanran looked at Lan Yanran's ignorant expression and knew that he was overthinking. What are you thinking about? Why are you back? She stood up and patted Lan Yanran's small head. Mom is asleep in the hospital and might have to stay until tomorrow morning. Dad will be fine alone. I've come back to see my goddess. Lan Yanran smiled. Goddess? Lan Yanran frowned. Wasn't her brother not interested in women? There were so many girls in school that he didn't look at, and yet there's a goddess he liked? Yes, Lu Shishi is my goddess. The most popular love of the nation. She is so innocent, and I have all of her movies and songs she filmed. I even know her lines. Today is her first live broadcast, so I will definitely support her. Lan Yanran was excited. Do you like her acting? Lan Yanran smiled. Of course. It isn't just acting. She also does concerts. My dream is to act in a movie with her, preferably a kissing scene. I want to be a popular actor like her. It's a pity that this is just a dream. Lan Yanran looked forward to it, but was a little helpless towards the end. Don't worry, your dream will come true. Lan Yanran patted his shoulder. Lan Yanran was the school hunk, and his looks were top-notch. It won't be a problem for him to become a young hunk celebrity in the entertainment industry. Since her brother had something he wanted to do, she would definitely help him accomplish it. Thank you, sis. Sis, you continue with what you were doing. I'm going back to my room. Lan Yanran smiled back and closed the door. She turned on her computer and continued to type. Contact Lu Taiyan Entertainment's boss and tell him that we'll be sending someone over to be a trainee soon and to treat him well. Yes, boss, the other party immediately replied. Lu Taiyan Entertainment's boss, King Mu, was a client of Lan Yanran. Because Lan Yanran had saved his life, he was indebted to her. He was a grateful person and promised to do his best to fulfill her requests. Lan Yanran believed that he was a person who would keep his promises. The next day was Wednesday. After Lan Yanran finished her morning classes, she had no more classes in the afternoon. Since she had nothing to do, she decided to visit the countryside. Chapter 48. Deceived. Suddenly, there was a text message. Boss, the news is that Xiang Taiyan is in the Auto Museum. Do you need backup? There is no need. I'll scout out the situation myself. Form an ambush on both sides of the museum, and don't let anyone notice. Anran's eyes lit up as she replied quickly. She kept her phone and strode towards the museum. The Auto Museum was different from the pavilion. It was a coffee shop, but it was also entertainment. There are many entertainment facilities, including KTV and a card room. In the deepest part of the Auto Museum was a guest room, which was reserved for the rich. Lan Yanran had changed her clothes. She was dressed maturely, with bright red lips, long blonde hair, revealing clothes and a pair of crystal shoes. She looked like a rich young maiden. The moment she entered the hall, she was stopped by a security guard and the receptionist. Miss, I'm sorry, the entertainment facilities are on the right. A security guard stepped forward and said. Lan Yanran took out a brown card and placed it in front of the security guard while chewing gum. The receptionist smiled. Oh, you're a distinguished member? Which private room would you like today? The members of the Autumn Museum were different from others. According to the colors of their cards, they were divided into high, medium, and low levels. The high-level members could choose their private room, and the facilities in the private room were excellent. There weren't many high-level members in the Autumn Museum, so there weren't many conflicts. The lower middle-class members didn't have the right to choose a private room, as the lower middle-class members were usually in the gaming area. In order to play games, Xiang Taiyan could only be a high-ranking member. Is there anyone else in this private room today? Lan asked. Someone who could become a member of the Auto Museum was definitely not a person to be trifled with, so she would have to deal with them carefully. There are guests in private room 306, the receptionist said respectfully. Then I want the room next to theirs, Lan replied coldly, without a trace of emotion. All right, please follow me. The receptionist brought Lan to private room 307. Lan entered the private room and took out her equipment. The room was soundproof, so she couldn't hear a single sound through the walls. She walked around the room several times, looking for a way to connect to the other side. Next door, Rong Zi was using a computer in his room to contact Mojin Rong. Master Rong, there is no news from Q. Is she not coming? That's impossible. Since she accepted the mission, she must have heard the news and will definitely come. Mojin Rong was certain. Rong Zi sent a message to Q using his computer. How is it? Did you find Shang Tian? He asked deliberately to test whether Q was here or not. I'm at the cafe opposite the Auto Museum monitoring Shang Tian. I believe there will be an outcome soon. Lan didn't reveal her information. After all, the internet was virtual and no one knew each other. She couldn't trust the others easily. The cafe opposite of the museum. Rongzi looked through the window at the cafe across the street. As expected, someone was using a computer. The bait was in. He closed his computer and left the room without closing the door. The few of you go to the cafe across the museum and catch the person playing with their computer. Lan heard the commotion outside and secretly opened the door to see the figure walking out. Was it Shang Tian or an employer? Lan didn't think too much about it and looked at the cafe out the window. Suddenly her eyes widened. The cafe became crowded. This was indeed a trap. Rongzi took the lead and walked into the cafe. He stood in front of a girl playing computer games and spoke triumphantly. Q, you've been exposed. The girl was wearing glasses and had a white-collar temperament. She was frightened when she saw these people surrounding her. She said with a trembling voice, Who are you? I didn't do anything wrong. Don't arrest me. Your acting is pretty good, Q. Why aren't you admitting it? What are you doing here? Rongzi smiled. I'm working. I'm a company executive. I didn't do anything. Don't arrest me. I'm calling for help. The girl was pale with fright, her eyes dull and her voice trembling. Stop pretending. We won't hurt you. As long as you agree to cooperate with us and our partner, you can request whatever salary you like. I don't know you. What are you talking about? I have a job. I called the police. The girl continued to tremble. Rongzi snatched the girl's computer and opened her email. There were some contacts and documents, but there was no sign of them being deleted or formatted. Rongzi frowned. This computer was too clean. It didn't seem like it belonged to a hacker. Looking at the girl's frightened eyes, he immediately understood. He had been tricked. Oh, crap. I was tricked. Let's hurry back. Rongzi turned to leave. The group of people followed him and left the cafe. The people around were stunned. Damn it. As expected of Q, he was tricked. Rongzi returned to his room and noticed the door next door was slightly open. Had Q been here? He pushed the door open gently and found that the sofa was still warm. Q really had been in the room beside him. He hurriedly chased after her, but there wasn't even a trace to follow. Chapter 49. Changed his mind. Rongzi grabbed the receptionist. What did the guest in room 307 look like? When did she leave? The receptionist was confused. The person who just left was a girl. She had long hair, big eyes, and a good figure. I want to see her information. Rongzi was excited. I'm sorry, Mr. Rong. Guest information can't be disclosed in public. It is the rule of the Auto Museum, the receptionist replied politely. Rongzi didn't say much and returned to his room. He wanted to check her information, so he hacked into that database of the Auto Museum. But Ayn Rand wouldn't give Rong Zi such a chance. She had deleted all information a long time ago, and the information just now was fake. So Rong Zi was destined to return empty-handed. Damn it. Rong Zi stomped his feet in anger. He hadn't met such an opponent in a long time and was suddenly interested. He sent Lan Ayn Rand an email. You lied to me? Mister, you lied to me first. I'm only doing this to protect myself. You are Shang Tian, right? Lan Ayn Rand guessed. You're wrong. I won't beat around the bush. If you cooperate, we will become partners and you can name your price. Rong Zi was suddenly very interested in Q. Previously, he just wanted to help Mo Zhenrong, but now he changed his mind. He wanted Q to be his subordinate. 10 billion yuan. Lan Ayn Rand only wanted the 10 billion. She wasn't interested in more. Rong Zi thought for a moment. Q was much more valuable than 10 billion yuan, but he couldn't give her this money for nothing. Fine, Shang Tian first, then I'll give it to you. He sent it with a smile. Lan Ayn Rand replied without a thought. This is a test, but I will find them. I hope you won't go back on your word. I don't like people lying to me. Of course, but I still hope that you can be my partner. I can give you 10 billion yuan now. Rong Zi wanted to see if Q was a greedy person. His team didn't need a greedy person, as such a person could be dangerous. Lan Ayn Rand thought for a moment. She was tempted by the 10 billion, but she would never bow down to anyone. She was just herself. There is no need for that. I will only do my part. I will never bow down to money. Ayn Rand shut her computer after this message. Rong Zi was satisfied with this answer. This was the kind of person he needed. It was better to be friends than opponents. Master Rong, I'm sorry, but I'm going to steal her from you. In the Mo family villa, young Master Z sent news that he was tricked and the operation failed. But he has spoken to Q. She will find Shang Tian and then give her 10 billion yuan, Musan reported. Rong Zi probably didn't do this to help me, but for himself. Mo Zhenrong looked up. Young Master, I don't understand. Didn't Master Z accept the job to help you in the beginning? How did it turn out this way? Musan was confused. There aren't many opponents in the hacker world that can match Rong Zi's skills, and it wasn't easy for him to meet such a tough opponent. This is his cup of tea. It's hard to find a woman comparable to her. I'm afraid there will be another show to watch. Mo Zhenrong spoke softly. Master, if Master Z takes Q, then the person you're looking for... Mo-san hesitated. He knew how long young Master had been searching for Zero. Every time his illness acted up, he would be in so much pain that he had to find Zero. How is the matter I asked you to handle? Mo Zhenrong asked. I've already checked the schools, and there isn't anything suspicious. There isn't anything special about Miss Lin either. Her identity is clean and her schedule is simple. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Mo Zhenrong thought for a moment. No, there must be a problem. Mo Zhenrong vaguely remembered Lan Ayn Rand's disguise and extravagance at the auction. She was definitely not an ordinary person. You'll have to keep a close eye on Lan Ayn Rand starting tomorrow. I want to know every move she makes. Young Master, there has been some movement over there since Mo returned last time. He seemed to be looking for someone to investigate Miss Lan. Would you like to warn him? Mo-san asked. There's no need. You can't find anything, so what could he find? You just have to remind him not to go overboard. Mo Zhenrong stood up, walked to the window, and looked into the distance. Agreed. In the blink of an eye, another few days passed, and Li Yuro could leave the hospital. She had wanted to go home for a long time, as the hospital was making her feel like a mushroom. The family had just returned home when she saw the door open. Lan Tingyong frowned. Did a thief enter the house since they weren't here today? He picked up a brick beside the door and looked inside. Xu Yanshan was helping an angry old Mrs. Lan out when the family ran into each other. "Mom, why are you here?" The Euro smiled. "Laugh? You can still laugh?" Zao Shoot Me was displeased. She had been waiting here for her second son's return. She was furious. When she saw Lan Tingyong holding a brick, she was even more furious and slapped him. The Euro was startled for 2 seconds before rushing forward to check on him. Chapter 50. Zao Shoot Me beaten. "Mom, why did you hit him? He is an Unempile thing. Is the brick in your hand to kill me?" Zao Shoot Me trembled with anger. "How did I raise such an Unempile thing?" "Mom, you're mistaken. I thought there was a thief in the house. The door was wide open and I wanted to use it to protect myself. I really didn't do it deliberately," Lan Tingyong explained. "You Unempile thing, how dare you talk back? I haven't been here for days and you think I'm dead? How dare you call me a thief? Tell me, what good things could I steal from you?" Zao Shoot Me's chest heaved with anger. "Mom, Tingyong really didn't mean that." The Euro's heart ached when she saw her husband beaten down. "Mom, it's embarrassing to let outsiders see a fight. We should go inside and talk. Since sister-in-law is back, her illness has only just healed. She might catch a cold again." Xu Yanshan spoke kindly. Zao Shoot Me calmed down, turned around, and sat in the hall. As soon as she sat down, Lan Anran walked out from behind. She had seen the scene just now. Her father was an adult, and yet she beat him so easily. Did she not care about his reputation? "Grandma, you're here just in time. Are you here to ask for money?" Lan Anran sat down as well. "Bastard! How can you sit down when I'm seated? Do you not have any manners? Do I need to tell you why I'm here?" Zao Shoot Me was enraged when she saw Lan Anran. "Grandma opened someone else's door without their permission. This is called trespassing. You can go for jail for that." Lan Anran peeled a mandarin on the table leisurely. "Bastard! What are you saying? I'm a whittled old woman. Is it illegal for me to visit my Unempile son?" Zao Shoot Me was getting angrier. "Mom, don't be angry. Euro hasn't been well these past few days, and I've been busy taking care of her in the hospital. A few days ago, she was in the intensive care unit, so I really didn't have time to visit you. I wanted to wait for Euro to get better to see you, and you came early." Lan Tingyong's attitude was very kind. After all, she was his mother, so he couldn't say much. "Well said. Second daughter-in-law, your health isn't good. Why are you always sick? It wouldn't be good if news spreads that my daughter-in-law is a sickly child." Zao Shoot Me was disgusted. "Mom, I've been working overtime too much, and will be better after some rest. Don't worry." The Euro was very polite. "Grandma isn't worried. She only cares about money. How much do you want today?" Lan Anran didn't believe Zao Shoot Me's words. Her mother had been hospitalized for such a long time, and there hadn't been even a phone call or even shown her face. That being said, when she ran out of money at the end of the month, she took the initiative to come over. "You insolent thing! How dare you speak to me in such a manner? You've been itching for a beating. If I don't teach you a lesson today, you won't know the rules." Zao Shoot Me glanced at Lan Tingyong and his wife. They couldn't bear to hit a child. "Don't stop me today. I'm going to teach her a lesson. Yanshan, slap her." Xu Yanshan looked troubled as she pretended to be constipated as she walked forward. "Mom, this isn't good. Who dares hit my child?" Li Yuro was usually an agreeable person and was very humble in front of old Mrs. Lan. Today, hearing that someone was going to hit her child, she couldn't tolerate it. She already felt like she owed her daughter, so how could she allow her to be bullied again? "Li Yuro, what daughter did you give birth to? She doesn't just jinx people, she also goes against her elders. What do you need such an unfile thing for? She won't know the Lan family rules unless she's taught a lesson." Zao Shoot Me slammed the table and roared. Mom, don't be angry. That wasn't what Ayn Rand meant. Ayn Rand, apologize to Grandma. Lan Ting hurriedly explained. Grandma, am I right? You're angry because you're embarrassed. Grandma is a doctor too. She must know the saying that the crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. It means that our ancestors inherited these morals. Lan Rand spoke unhurriedly. Zao Shoot Me's face turned green with anger. Was she indirectly scolding her for having low morals? You're rebelling, you brat. I'll teach you a lesson today. She raised her hand, wanting to slap him, but suddenly Lan Rand reacted quickly and landed a slap hard on Zao Shoot Me's face, producing a loud sound. Everyone was dumbfounded, and Zao Shoot Me was stunned. In the entire Lan family, or even the entire medical field, who would dare lay a finger on her? You dare hit me? Zao Shoot Me couldn't believe her eyes. She had lived so long, but she was beaten by a little girl. You acted first. I was just defending myself. Lan Rand sounded helpless when she said that. You, Lan Rand, you dare hit your grandmother? Mom, let me help you vent your anger. Shu Yanshan was furious. This was a good opportunity for revenge. She had just walked in front of Lan Rand before she could react. Lan Rand stretched out one leg, and Shu Yanshan tripped. Falling to the ground, the heels of her high heels were broken. Ah, Auntie, the quality of your shoes aren't good. Don't wear such lousy shoes again. Didn't Grandma give you a lot of money? Lan Rand picked up the ruined high heels mockingly and yanked the heels right off. Her high heels became flats. Shu Yanshan was furious. This was humiliating. Mom, this child. She couldn't take it anymore and could only look for Zao Shoot Me. You unempile and rebellious thing. I'll teach you a lesson myself. Zao Shoot Me was over 60 and had a strong body. She was a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and was good at maintaining her appearance. Her foundation was very good. She walked forward and was just about to raise her walking stick when Yan Rand suddenly pushed her with her arm and old Mrs. Lan fell. You can't blame me, Grandma. This was your scam. Lan Rand was dissatisfied. Chapter 51. Zao Shoot Me injured. Zao Shoot Me was even angrier when she heard this. She simply sat at the ground, looking aggrieved, not bothering to get up. A little girl dares to climb all over my head? I lived my life in vain, she wailed loudly. It seems like Grandma has the genes of someone from the countryside in her bones. She looks exactly like an old woman from the countryside now. They are like this when they quarrel. Lan Rand smiled indifferently. Ayn Rand, don't add to the fire. Grandma is already in such a state. How can you be so senseless? Are you trying to anger her to death? Shu Yanshan was dissatisfied. Sister-in-law, Mom, you... The Euro was about to speak when Zao Shoot Me interrupted. Lan Ting, look at the daughter you're raising. She defiled her elders, and now she wants to beat me after just a few words? She suddenly stood up and gave Lan Ting 2 more slaps. A son that doesn't learn is his father's mistake. Zao Shoot Me reached out to slap both sides of Lan Ting's face, which instantly became swollen. Lan Rand couldn't take it anymore. Her father was so old, and old Mrs. Lan was teaching him a lesson regardless of the occasion. It was too much. The fault of a father who doesn't teach their children? Then is it Grandma's fault that my father makes mistakes? She slapped Zao Shoot Me twice in the face. She slapped old Mrs. Lan the number of times she had slapped her father with equal force. Zao Shoot Me had been slapped 3 times by her granddaughter and naturally couldn't accept it. She was so angry that her face turned green and she roared with a trembling voice. You insolent thing! You dare to discipline your elders? I'll kill you today. With that, she pounced over, stretched out her long and slender nails, scratching Lan Rand furiously. Li Euro had just recovered from a serious illness and wasn't in good health to begin with. When she saw the scene in front of her, she was enraged and vomited blood. Mom! When Lan Rand saw Li Euro vomiting blood, she couldn't care less about old Mrs. Lan. She swung Zao Shoot Me forcefully away, and Zao Shoot Me lost her balance. She crashed into a pillar by the side, causing fresh blood to flow. Mom! Lan Young and Xu Yanchen hurried over to help Zao Shoot Me, who fainted. The year had just left the hospital, but now she was going back again with Zao Shoot Me. Outside the ward, Xu Yanchen roared angrily. You have no manners. You dare to hit your grandma? If anything happens to her, I'll send you to jail. Lan Anran couldn't care less about old Mrs. Lan's injuries. She was looking for an opportunity to give her mother medicine. The doctor came out, removing his mask. Old Mrs. Lan is old, and her body is well maintained. This time, it was just a slight injury on her forehead. But Mrs. Lan's condition was more serious. She was just discharged from the hospital, but seems to have had a sudden relapse. She needs to recuperate in the hospital for a period of time. Lan Young was relieved to hear that his mother was all right, but when he heard that Li Yuro was ill again, he frowned. Fortunately, old Mrs. Lan is all right, or else I would have taught you a lesson, Xu Yanchen threatened as she shot away. Dad, I'm sorry. If it wasn't for me, Mom wouldn't. Lan Anren felt guilty about her mother's illness. If she had endured it, her mother wouldn't have ended up like this. Anren, you're not young anymore. Remember, there are always consequences. No matter what, she is your grandma. You can't hit her. What if you get injured? Lan Young was helpless. Dad, Sis just couldn't take it when she saw you were being slapped. All the years, Grandma has been picking on you whenever she isn't pleased. Why haven't I seen her move a finger against Uncle? She's very biased. Lan Yanren pouted, feeling that life was unfair. Nonsense. She is my mother and your biological grandma. It's her duty to discipline me. In the end, it's my fault for not educating you well. Lan Ting took the responsibility. He always thought that Lan Tingyi didn't have a job, and that it made sense that his mother favored him. He was a member of the family and should tolerate her. Besides, Zao Shoot Me was his mother, so it was only right. Dad, I'll go in and see Mom. Lan Anran lowered her head in silence. After entering the ward, Li Yuro laid on the hospital bed again. The herbal soup was no longer effective. She turned around, took out the reagent and a needle. This was the last bottle she had. She slowly injected it into her mother's vein. After the injection, Lan Yanren walked in. Sis, what are you doing? He thought he saw a shadow, but didn't know what it was. It's nothing. I was getting a syringe for Mom, but it's starting to drip too quickly. Lan Yanren explained, hiding the syringe in her sleeve. Sis, don't be sad. Grandma is old, and yet she can't accept her age. She blames us for crashing into a pillar. Lan Yanren admired his sister today. He didn't even dare to look at old Mrs. Lan. It's alright. I just made Mom sick again. It's my fault. Lan Yanren really didn't think she would ever do this. She had sworn never to make her mother upset, but she had broken a promise this time. She hadn't even been able to protect her against her mom's will. Sis, don't be sad. Mom will get better. Lan Yanren patted Lan Yanren's shoulder comfortingly. Yeah. Lan Yanren nodded. Chapter 52. Who is the more Unempile? At this moment, there was a commotion outside. It turned out to be old Mrs. Lan crying in pain after waking up. Mom, are you all right? Xu Yanchen was worried. Zao Shoot Me opened her eyes and was even more furious when she saw that Xu Yanchen was alone. That Unempile thing. How did I give birth to such an evil creature? Mom, I'll call Tingyi and Yaxin. They'll be here soon. Tingyan is with his wife. She isn't well, and he might be taking care of her. What? He forgot his mother after having a wife? That man? How did I give birth to such a son in this lifetime? Old man, you're not around anymore, and your children are Unempile. I might as well go with you. Zao Shoot Me spoke aggrievedly and squeezed down a few more tears. Mom, what are you saying? Don't forget that me and Tingyi, we're always here for you. It's just that second brother might be... It's only right that he takes care of his wife because she isn't ill. Xu Yanchen was putting on a show. Li Yuro, that Jinx is a sickly person. She's always sick and the Land family has spent so much money on her. She's useless trash. Zao Shoot Me was still furious. Just then, Lan Tingy hurried in, knelt in front of old Mrs. Land and cried, "Mom, what happened to you?" Lan Tingy's hair was combed neatly and his fat head grabbed Zao Shoot Me's hand as she cried. "Tingy, my good son, you're finally here. You have to help Mom. Your brother is Unempile. He forgot about Mom when he had a wife and even allowed his daughter, Lan Anran, to beat me. Look at my head. If the injury was more serious, I would have gone to see your father." Zao Shoot Me was exaggerating, and she cried with Lan Tingy. "Mom, how dare she hit you? Isn't that outrageous?" "Grandma, Sis usually looks very gentle. How did she suddenly become like this?" "Grandma, you suffered greatly," Lan Yaxin comforted her. "My good granddaughter, you're the most sensible one. Look at my Ting Young's family. I haven't seen them since I opened my eyes. That family." Zao Shoot Me continued to curse. "Mom, don't worry. We'll get justice for you." Lan Tingy stood up and walked out. "Lan Ran, get out of here. Lan Ting Young, you ingrate." With Lan Tingy's shout, everyone came to look. The nurses and patients crowded around, not knowing what was happening. "Brother, what's wrong?" Lan Ting Young walked out when he heard the voice. When Lan Tingy saw his brother walk out, he punched him without a word. "Bastard, how dare you hit our mom? We gave birth for you for nothing, you ingrate." Lan Ting Young's side was swollen and bleeding. He wiped the corner of his mouth, wanting to explain, but Lan Ran came out and said, "Does your family like to beat people?" Lan Tingy was suddenly stunned. The girl in front of him was too pretty. She had fair skin, piercing eyes, and a beautiful figure that seemed to be in her 20s. "Are you Lan Anran, the country girl?" he asked skeptically. "Yes, it's me. I beat old Mrs. Land. Do you have a problem with that?" Lan Anran asked confidently. "Bitch, you hit someone yet you're being reasonable? Your grandma is old and you dare hit her? She's your biological grandmother. Aren't you afraid of going to jail if you beat her up?" The girl in front of him was pretty, but she was stubborn and behaved like a shrew. He didn't like her at all. "I didn't beat anyone. Grandma framed me. Uncle, you can't accuse me." "I accused you? Are you saying that I accused you? Did she cause the wound on her head?" "Lan Ting Young, don't be a mute. What happened?" Lan Tingy's anger grew. This brat was stubborn. "Brother, it was me." "Dad, don't speak. It was me." "Lan Tingy, you still have to come over? You aren't usually around, so are you here trying to cure a favor?" In her past life, Lan Anran hated Lan Tingy to the core. He wanted her father's traditional Chinese medicine hospital and made every attempt to get it. In the end, he finally succeeded. She couldn't let him off this time. "Rascal, you have no manners. You dare to hit your grandma and your words are so rude. Everyone, come to see this heartless girl. She beat her grandma and now she's lying inside with a big scar on her head. She has no honor." Lan Tingy pointed at Lan Anran and cursed. The others didn't understand and started to point at Lan Anran. "The girl is Unempile. How dare she hit an old woman? She looks beautiful, but she's vicious. Her parents haven't taught her well. How can an old person endure such torment? This child is useless." Lan Anran's gaze suddenly turned cold, which gradually rose in her eyes as she glanced at the surrounding people. She couldn't say anything. Not while her parents were here. The others shivered from her stare. It was hard to imagine that a child could have such a look. Chapter 53. A Better Method. "It's not like that. Anran is a good child." Lan Tingy tried his best to explain, but it wasn't enough. "Lan Tingy, do you think you're so faithful? Aren't you usually gambling or drinking? There are at least 50 or 100 women who have been by your side, right? You've relied on my dad to have all these assets. Without him, what are you? Shu Yanchen, your bag is worth 100,000 yuan, which is also my dad's money. The money you use for mahjong every day is also my dad's money. Lan Yaxin, your school fees are also paid by my dad's money. You may be faithful, but if you don't depend on my dad to give Grandma some retirement money every month, would you be here today?" Lan Anran smiled brightly, her eyes cold. "Nonsense. I use the money from my investments. We don't touch a single yuan from your grandmother's retirement money. Didn't we give it to you last time? Shu Yanchen was a little guilty. That was because I stopped you this month. In the past, Shu Yanchen, I respected you and called you auntie. But now that you're bullying our family, I'm not afraid of losing to you. You're referring to mahjong when you say you were investing your money? From what I know, your mahjong skills are horrible. You lose every round. Lan Yanran smiled. Damn it. How does she know everything? Lan Yanran, don't talk nonsense. My parents don't do such things. On the other hand, second uncle only knows to earn money every day, and he hasn't visited grandma in a month. How dare he talk about us? Lan Yaxin was unconvinced. Lan Yaxin, you have the cheek to say that? Has uncle ever been home after he takes our money? After he gets the money, he gambles and goes to bars to find girls. He thinks I don't know? Grandma probably doesn't see him even once a month. Every day he's busy, and the excuse is always the same. Where do you go to put in a good word for your parents every day? Old Mrs. Lan is obsessed with you. Your family has hands and feet. Instead of earning money, all you know is to pester the elderly. The older one is taking the younger one to live off others. Today, old Mrs. Lan came over to get money again, but unexpectedly she beat her son after a few words. Since she couldn't beat him, she tried to frame him, I'm convinced. Lan Tingyi and his family's faces changed, one moment green and the next white. A weak voice came from behind. He is my son. I can educate him as I want. How dare you, little girl, lecture me? That's my son's money. I can spend it as I want. I'm old. Isn't it only right for me to have some retirement money? Zao Shoot Me cried again as she spoke. There was a big piece of gauze exposed on her head, and there was even a little trace of blood, making her look extremely pitiful. She was good at making use of people's sympathy, and was able to refute a wave of sympathy in an instant. I can't control you. You are my grandma, but it isn't out of bounds for me to talk about my uncle's family. They have been living off their elders and my dad's hard-earned money. They are already so old, and yet they don't know shame. They actually have the cheek to come over and say that they are filial. The most unfilial of all is you. My dad gives grandma at least 200,000 yuan a month, and uncle gets 100,000 yuan. Who is the unfilial one? Lan Yanran refused to be outdone. The crowd split into two groups. Some pitied Lan Tingyang. He raised his whole family alone, and it wasn't easy for him to have a troublesome uncle and a biased old mother. Some pitied old Mrs. Lan. No matter what, she shouldn't have hit an old woman. It was wrong for a youth to hit an elder. I may be living off my mom, but at least I don't beat anyone. Lan Tingyang, you say something to your daughter. Mom is so old, and your daughter beat her up so easily. Since that's the case, I'll avenge her. I won't accept this grievance for nothing. Lan Tingyang raised his hand to hit her. Wait, I know you want an eye for an eye, but there can be a better solution. Lan Yanran smiled. A better solution? Shu Yanchen frowned, not knowing what she meant. Lan Yanran took out a bank card that she had confiscated from last time and smiled. There is 1 million yuan in this bank card. You can choose if you want 1 million or to hit me. If you choose to hit me, the 1 million will be gone, and from now on the money given to grandma will be halved, and what you will get will even be less. Choosing 1 million will mean giving up on avenging grandma. That being said, we won't have any money to give you in the next 2 months. You can choose. Lan Tingyi and Shu Yanchen looked at each other. This brat really knew how to set multiple choice questions. In fact, they didn't really want to avenge old Mrs. Lan, mainly because they wanted more compensation and retirement money. But with so many people watching, it wouldn't look good if they took it back now that the word had spread. Lan Yaxin looked at the bank card in her hand and was furious, because she knew her parents would definitely pick up the money, so she wanted to slap Lan Yanran. Hurry up and choose. There won't be anything left if you take too long. Lan Tingyi looked at old Mrs. Lan. Shu Yanchen looked at her bank card and couldn't bear to part with it. It was 1 million yuan. Lan Tingyang would only give her a little bit of retirement money, which wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between her teeth. Zao Shoot Me rolled her eyes and reached for the bank card. I'll accept this money as compensation. They were overjoyed. If Mom accepted the money, wouldn't they have hope? Chapter 54. Deceived. Lan Tingyi continued to pretend. Mom, how can I accept money? I can teach her a lesson. That's right, Mom. Are your injuries and grievances all for nothing? Shu Yanshan added. Forget it. We're a family. How can an elder like me bicker with a child? Zao Shoot Me said magnanimously. As you can see, they chose money. If this isn't a scam, what is? Lan Anren smiled. They were fooled. A group of people standing by despised Lan Tingyi's family. Were they really choosing the money? It seemed that old Mrs. Lan's blood reservoir was going to empty again. Lan Anren, are you looking for trouble? The more Lan Tingyi looked at her, the angrier he got. He really wanted to slap her. You want to beat me even though you chose the money? Uncle, don't you have any honor? Tingyi, let's not bicker with her. Let's go. Let's call it a day. Zao Shoot Me took the bank card and called for everyone. She pulled Lan Tingyi's family back and shut the door. The onlookers dispersed. On the other side, Lan Tingyan looked at Anren with a worried expression. This child was different from usual. He originally thought she was obedient, but it seemed that she wasn't today. Sis, do you really have 1 million yuan on your bank card? Lan Yanren was shocked. It was a pity to give 1 million yuan to this blood-sucking family. Lan Yanren smiled slightly. Lan Tingyang knew there was only 100,000 yuan on the bank card. He had been silently observing his daughter. She seemed to have changed. In the other word, Zao Shoot Me hugged the bank card and smiled. We're rich! Tingyi, take this card. I can't mooch her a single person, so 200,000 yuan is enough. Shu Yanshan's eyes shone brightly as she looked at Lan Tingyi. Mom, this is your retirement money. How can we accept it? Why can't you accept it? A widowed old lady like me can't eat much. Take it and buy some good clothes and delicious food for Yaksen. Look at how skinny she had become. Zao Shoot Me smiled kindly. Grandma, you're the best. Lan Yaksen walked over kindly. My granddaughter is the most sensible. Unlike Lan Anren, I'm so angry. Zao Shoot Me didn't forget to curse. Mom, it's good to accept this 1 million yuan, but we have to think of a plan. We can't let that family off so easily. You can't suffer such an injury for nothing, Shu Yanshan said. Mom, Yanshan is right. You won't have any retirement money for the next 2 months. What are you going to do from now on? Lan Tingyi was more concerned about the lack of income for the next 2 months. No one in this family earned an income, and this family would be spent on his gambling. How could he not have money? Zao Shoot Me thought about it and agreed that 1 million yuan couldn't last forever. The retirement money for both of them wasn't cheap either, and she definitely couldn't afford it. Grandma, I have a good idea. Second uncle's traditional Chinese medicine hospital has always been his. If we add in Mom and Dad's shares, we can get a lot of dividends every month. We could just sit and count our money. Lan Yaksen smiled. Hey, my daughter is so smart. Your second uncle's company doesn't have our shares. If we add in our shares, we'll get a bonus every month. Mom, tell second brother that a family can't enjoy such a good thing alone. Shu Yanshan smiled and pinched Lan Yaksen's face. Alright, let's do that. He wouldn't dare to disobey me. Family members shouldn't be greedy. Zao Shoot Me made up her mind to discuss this with Lan Tingyi, but not now. Good daughter, you're so smart, Lan Tingyi praised. Alright, Yaksen. Are the scores for the written exams coming out tomorrow? Shu Yanshan asked. Yaksen nodded. When the time comes, take the results and ask Lan Anren. I want to see if she can still insult me. That family of trash isn't capable at all. Shu Yanshan smiled. Our Yaksen will definitely score the best. She will definitely be a good student in the research institute. Zao Shoot Me touched Lan Yaksen's hand and smiled. Zao Shoot Me's injuries weren't serious. She could be discharged from the hospital to be home and recuperate. When she returned home, she passed by a bank, and Lan Tingyi couldn't wait to get in and get the money. Hi, help me get 800,000 yuan into this account, please. Lan Tingyi walked into the bank and handed the bank card to the staff. The staff member spoke after a while. Sorry, sir. There's only 100,000 yuan on this card. What? 100,000? Are you sure? There should be 1 million. Lang Tingy couldn't believe it. Truly, it's really only 100,000. Do you want to take it all out? The staff member asked politely. Forget it, I'm not taking it. Lang Tingy mumbled. He walked out of the bank full of resentment. How was it? Did you take out the money? Zao Shoot Me was overjoyed. Mom, we were tricked. There's only 100,000 yuan on this card. Lang Tingy was furious. What did you say? 100,000? How is that possible? Zao Shoot Me was in disbelief. Look carefully. There isn't 1 million yuan. Xu Yanshan couldn't believe it either. Damn it! And Yanran. Lang Tingy stomped his feet angrily. Good, good. Yanran, you dare to deceive me? Watch how I'm going to teach you a lesson. Zao Shoot Me trembled with anger. Mom, it's useless to go back now. They'll accuse us of taking the money. Xu Yanshan was even angrier. Her future bags were gone. Go home. When I'm better, I'll talk to Ting Yan. Zao Shoot Me was furious, and she trembled as they drove home. Chapter 55. First place. The next day was the announcement of the written test results. The grades of each school would be posted on the school's notice board for the students to check. Because Lan Anran lied to Lan Yaxin yesterday, Lan Yaxin was still furious. Now that the results were out, she could mock her. Yaxin, I heard that the written test results are out and many people are watching. Let's go and have a look. Uki laughed. Our Yaxin will definitely be first place. There's no doubt about it. Yang King smiled. Lan Yaxin's results were always better than the experimental class, and she was one of the best in the entire district. They weren't worried about that. Let's go take a look. I still don't know if I advanced this time. Uki pulled the two of them out. She didn't have high hopes for the exam, and didn't matter if she didn't advance. She mainly wanted to see Lan Anran's last place score. The school notice board was surrounded by people who were looking at her grades happily. Guki was tall and had good eyesight. She stood at the back and looked at her results. She was 10th in the experimental class and ranked 50th in the entire district. This was considered all right. She looked up and frowned. Strange. The last person wasn't Lan Anran, it was Lan Yanran. Where were her results? She followed the list and looked up again, but there was no sign of Lan Anran's name. Yaxin, where are your sister's grade? The last place isn't your sister, it's your brother, Guki asked curiously. The entire school knew how bad Lan Yanran was, but Lan Anran hadn't learned before, so she should be worse than Lan Yanran. What was happening? Yang King couldn't believe it and squeezed in to take a look. As expected, Lan Anran's name wasn't seen. Jackson, I heard that your sister fell asleep in the examination room. Did she fail? Yang King smiled. Ah, that's hilarious. If she really scored 0, her little face wouldn't be able to take it. Yuki laughed wantonly. Lan Jackson thought so too. This countryside girl scored a 0 and didn't even make it on the list. She would be ridiculed when she returned. Suddenly, the crowd broke into discussion. First place has changed? That's amazing. Is Lan Anran the new school beauty that crushed Lan Yaxin? Seems like it. It seems like she isn't just pretty, she also has skills, beauty, and wisdom. The girls in the crowd discussed loudly, causing a stir. The discussion gradually entered Lan Yaxin's ears. She didn't believe such an absurd rumor. She had always been first place, but now she was too lazy to look. How could it be anyone else? What nonsense are you saying? Yaxin is first, Guki retorted. Nonsense. How can the ranking list be fake? Don't you know how to read it yourself? A girl mocked. Some people are always at the top. It must be uncomfortable for them to fall like this, right? She was a skinny girl with glasses. She hated Lan Yaxin's arrogant appearance. Was she so great just because she was pretty? She spoke in a strange tone. Yang King didn't believe it. She pushed through the crowd and looked at the first place, shocked. The first place was actually Lan Anran. She turned her head silently and looked at Lan Yaxin with a panicked expression. Yaxin, you... Looking at Yang King's expression, Lan Yaxin still couldn't believe it. She walked over to look at the list and was also shocked. Number 1 in the class, number 1 in the school, number 1 in the entire district. She had never obtained such a good result. How could it have been her? Lan Yaxin looked at her ranking again. She was first in the class, second in the school, third in the entire district, but there was someone else who had 1 point higher than her. How could this have been? Some people think that they're going to the first place every time, and they are arrogant. Being pretty isn't a talent, so don't be so arrogant in the future, a girl said sourly as she turned to leave. Who's arrogant? Tell me. Yan King was very dissatisfied. Lan Yaxin's face was flushed, and she couldn't face anyone. She was about to turn around when Lan Anwen appeared in front of her. Sis, what's wrong? I haven't seen my results. Have I done well? She asked with a smile, her eyes sparkling as they could speak, filled with ridicule. You can see whether you did well or not. Yaxin, let's go. Wu Qi pulled Lan Yaxin and left. What are you being so fierce for, bitch? Lan Yanren called out. Yan King looked at Yanren in a daze. It didn't matter that he was in last place, as long as he was handsome. Sis, I didn't see my results. I'm always last place. Don't look anymore. You'll definitely be at the same as me. Lan Yanren seemed to have expected this. It's alright, let's take a look. Ayn Rand smiled and walked forward. When the group of people saw Ayn Rand and Yan Rand appear at the same time, they exploded. Up close, they could see Lan Ayn Rand. Her skin was excellent, her facial features were well defined, and she had a unique scent. Some boys thought that Lan Ayn Rand's scent was simply delicious. This pair of siblings is so pretty, I'm amazed, someone in the crowd whispered. That's Ayn Rand. It must have been hard to get first place in 3 sections, someone in the crowd said with awe.